Here we have yet another thought-provoking picture. Yet another thought-provoking picture. It's thought-provoking because it makes you think. So let's take a look at this picture. In the picture, we can see there are two paths. There's a path on the left and a path on the right. The path on the left has a sign above it that says, following the narrative. And the sign on the right has a different sign above it which says, analysing the facts. Now the sign on the left, the pathway on the left is absolutely jam-packed with people. Look how crowded it is. There are so many people here. It's completely jam-packed with people. There is not even enough space to move because it's completely jam-packed. The pathway on the right only has a few people on it. There's 1, 2, 3, 4 people, and it's mostly empty. So there is a big contrast. There's a contrast here between the pathway on the left, which is jam-packed with people, and the pathway on the right, which only has a few people on it. Now, all the people on the left, under the sign which says following the narrative, they're all screaming and shouting, and they're saying, you're a terrible person. And they're screaming and shouting at the people on the right, the ones who are walking under the analysing the facts sign. Some of them are even throwing rocks. There are some rocks here. So that's the picture, but what's the deeper message? What's the deeper message of this picture? Well, to me, I think the deeper message of this picture is that sometimes telling the truth and analysing the facts of a situation can sometimes make you hated and despised, absolutely despised by many people. Usually when there is a world event, something happens, right? Or any area of life, really, there is usually a narrative around it. There is a story that generally most people in the world believe, right? There is a general narrative about this thing. But sometimes if you dig a little deeper, yes, if you decide to dig a little deeper into this area, you may find that the truth or the facts of the situation are not the same as the narrative that everybody believes about this situation. Let me give you a relatively recent example of this phenomenon, right? This kind of phenomenon. The Iraq War. Yeah, the Iraq War, which started in 2003. Now in 2003, at the beginning of the Iraq War, the general narrative of the situation was that in America, at least, the general narrative that all the American people and people generally believed is that after the terrorist attack of 9/11, where there was a terrorist attack in New York at 9/11, that America was in the right to respond to this attack, that they could go to Iraq and also Afghanistan, yes, go to Iraq and fight back. They were sort of fighting back, and America were being attacked, and that in order to protect themselves, America had to respond to the threat. Yes, America had to respond to the threat, and they had to go to Iraq because America was in danger. That was the narrative. That was the general narrative in around 2003. That is what most American people believed at that time. Now, at the time, of course, there were some people, a very small number of people, who questioned this narrative. They questioned this narrative and they said, well, do we need to go to war in Iraq? Is this fair? Is this right? Should we, maybe if we look at the facts, of the situation, maybe we do not need to go to war in Iraq. And how did people respond to these people, to these very few people who decided to analyze the facts? well, people generally didn't like these people. They were shouted at and, they were pushed away. Nobody wanted to hear from these people who were trying to analyze the facts of the situation and tell the truth. Of course, now, about 22 years later, 22 years after the Iraq War happened, public opinion on this has changed a lot. And now most people, generally speaking, the narrative around the Iraq War is now that it was a silly war, it was a stupid war, and America should never have gone to war in Iraq. That is the general narrative now, because the narrative has changed. The narrative has shifted. Yes, it has shifted. In the past, everybody believed the Iraq War was right, and all of the truth tellers, all of the people who wanted to go against the narrative, they were hated. But now it has changed 20 years later. Another example of this would be smoking. Yes. Because in the past, of course, everybody thought that smoking was perfectly healthy and that there was no problems with smoking. And, people also thought that smoking in the pub, in the bar, around people, smoking around children was absolutely fine. But of course, so that was the general narrative. The general narrative is that smoking's fine. Smoking's cool, it's cool, it's fashionable to smoke, it's fine. But of course, at that time, there were a few doctors and a few people who tried to take a look at the facts of the situation and try to raise the alarm. They tried to raise the alarm to show everybody, actually, smoking is very unhealthy. And you should not smoke around your children because there is such a thing as secondhand smoke, right? There's secondhand smoke. So when you smoke, the smoke that you blow into the air, other people will breathe it in, and is also unhealthy for them as well. And so they said we should have a smoking area, right? In the pub or in the bar. We should have an area you have to go outside to smoke. You should not be allowed to smoke inside a restaurant. You should not be allowed to smoke inside the bar. Only a very small number of people said this. A few doctors suggested this. How do you think the general public and most people reacted to these doctors who were trying to tell the truth? They said it was a load of rubbish. They said it was ridiculous. They said, no way, these doctors, they're crazy. They're trying to control us. They're idiots, right? That's what they said about these doctors. Most people, the general public, they're just trying to make us scared. Smoking's fine and, it's absolutely fine. But of course, now 50 years later or 60 years later, right? The narrative around smoking has completely shifted. It's shifted now. And now everybody believes that smoking is bad and that secondhand smoke is not good as well, and that we should have a smoking area for you to go to if you're a smoker, and that you should not smoke cigarettes around your children because it's bad for their health. This is the accepted narrative now. So the message of this picture is that sometimes to go against the narrative, to go against popular opinion, can be a very difficult thing to do. Only a few people will actually analyze the facts and try to find the truth of a situation. Most people will sort of go along with the narrative that everybody believes. They will go along with what most people believe about something, but it can be difficult to stand alone, look at the facts by yourself, stand alone, and say something which goes against the narrative that most people believe, because often when you do this, people do not like you very much. People don't want to hear that what they believe is not correct. So I think The message of this picture is that sometimes you have to be strong. Analyze the facts for yourself and find the truth of a situation instead of just following the narrative that most people believe about something. So I hope you enjoyed listening to me talk about this thought-provoking picture, and keep listening to English, and I will see you in the next one. Hello guys. If you want more videos, go to EnglishSponge.com. On the website, you will find videos from many different teachers, some British teachers and some American teachers. The videos are organized by level A1, A2, B1 and B2, so you can choose which level you want to listen to. So go to EnglishSponge.com. The link is in the description of the video.